I don't need an assistant who's loyal. I need one who sees through lies. Good. Because I already know you're not human. The silence that followed my words wasn't awkward. It was electric, sharp, the kind of silence that pulls at the skin behind your ears and makes the air feel too still. Thorne Drake looked up from the report I'd just handed him. His office, the only one still lit on the 44th floor, glowed with the amber light of a single desk lamp. It cast long shadows across the shelves behind him and made the glass walls shimmer with the city's reflection. Behind him, the skyline blinked like a breathing beast. He didn't flinch. He didn't smile either. I wasn't sure he could. Instead, he leaned back in his chair, one hand still resting on the document, the other tapping once, only once, against the armrest. "You're certain?" he asked finally. I adjusted my glasses and shrugged. "Your reflection doesn't always move when you do, and I've never seen you blink, once." His eyes narrowed just slightly. They were the color of obsidian, not black exactly, but something that swallowed light. "You've been watching me, Miss Taylor. Isn't that in the job description?" I asked, folding my hands behind my back. Observe, report, anticipate. A faint exhale escaped him. Could have been a laugh, but I wasn't sure he was wired for laughter. Thorne Drake wasn't known for small talk or human warmth. He was known for making senior partners cry during board reviews, for closing impossible deals without raising his voice, and for firing 3 VPs before lunch. And yet he'd kept me. Me, the nobody, the invisible secretary, the quiet girl with sharp instincts and a knack for seeing through noise. "You're not afraid?" he asked, studying me like I was a particularly complex contract. "I'm smarter than that," I said. He tilted his head. "Explain." I stepped forward, careful not to look away. "Fear is useful when you're being hunted. But you don't hunt, do you? You persuade. You wrap people in words until they sign away their lives with a smile." His fingers froze on the report. "You think I manipulate people? I think you don't need to. They do it to themselves. You just guide them there." For a moment there was no movement. Not from him, not from me. Even the lights of the city seemed to pause, as if holding their breath. Then he stood, fluid, deliberate. His presence filled the room in a way that had nothing to do with his height and everything to do with pressure. Like gravity. Like heat. He walked slowly to the edge of his desk and leaned against it, arms crossed. "Tell me, Miss Taylor, who lied in the Ravenstone proposal?" I didn't miss a beat. Martin Hale. The numbers he gave in his Q3 projections were inflated. Not enough to be obvious, but enough to hide the layoffs he's planning after acquisition. He expects you to sign, clean house, and take the PR fall? Thorne smiled. It wasn't a pleasant smile. It was the kind that reminded you predators have teeth for a reason. "Good," he said. I tried not to shiver. "So, you already knew?" I suspected. "You confirmed, and if I'd been wrong, I don't keep people who guess." His tone was casual, but there was steel beneath it. Still, my pulse didn't spike. I wasn't lying. I wasn't afraid of him. Maybe I should have been, but I wasn't. "Why ask me?" I asked quietly. "You have analysts, lawyers, partners." "They have loyalty," he said. "And ambition. 2 things that blind a man faster than rage. I don't need an assistant who's loyal. I need one who sees through lies." I looked straight into his eyes. "Good. Because I already know you're not human." That was the moment, the shift. He didn't blink. Of course he didn't. He just stared, not in shock, not in denial. Just stared. And in that silence, I realized something. He'd known I knew. He'd been waiting for me to say it. I swallowed, throat dry. "You're not like them, the others. You don't pretend to care about pretense." He nodded once. "That's why I chose you, chose me, not hired, not assigned, chosen." He stepped back behind his desk, dismissing me with a glance. But I didn't leave. "I'm not afraid of you, Mr. Drake," I said. He looked up again. "That's what makes you useful. No smile, no warmth. Just the cold recognition of something sharp in me. Something dangerous." As I turned to go, I caught my reflection in the glass wall, and his behind mine. Two shadows, one human, one not, but both staring straight ahead. In the daylight, the office looked like every other sterile tower in the city, cold glass, polished floors, and the quiet hum of forced productivity. Everyone walked fast, talked faster, and pretended not to see anyone beneath their pay grade, which meant no one saw me. Not really. "Nina, I need the revised projections for the Tanaka meeting," Leslie barked from across the bullpen without looking up from her screen. Her tone made it sound like she was doing me a favor by acknowledging my existence. "They're already in your inbox," I replied without emotion. She didn't thank me. She never did. I watched as she clicked through the presentation I had worked on until midnight, tweaking every detail, polishing every transition. She made one change, swapped the slide order, then strutted off to the conference room with the confidence of a woman who'd built it herself. 5 minutes later, through the glass walls, I saw her begin the pitch to the senior partners. She smiled like it was her idea, spoke like she owned it, and no one questioned it, because Leslie had mastered the one thing I never cared to: visibility. I sat back in my chair and adjusted my glasses. Said nothing. Did nothing. Because what would have been the point? If I spoke up, they'd brush me off. Call it a misunderstanding, tell me I was being territorial. And Leslie would flash that perfect sharp smile and say she and I collaborated. Same script. Different day. Still, something in me twitched, not rage. Not even sadness, just a quiet flicker of tired. My screen lit up with a new message. From T. Drake, subject, 7 p.m., conference room B, no notes, just you. I stared at the screen for a long moment. No greeting, no explanation, just that flat command that somehow always felt like more than it said. No notes. I closed my laptop. At exactly 6:59, I stood outside conference room B. It was on the other side of the floor, behind frosted glass and silence, the kind of room where real decisions got made, the ones that shaped the company's future and ruined careers before coffee. The lights were dim. He was already inside. I knocked once and stepped in. Thorne Drake sat at the far end of the long black table, sleeves rolled, tie gone, cuffs open just enough to remind me that power didn't always need polish. "You're punctual," he said without looking up. "I've been invisible all day," I said. "Least I could do was show up on time." He raised his eyes, sharp as ever, but didn't comment. Instead, he slid a tablet toward me. "No notes," he reminded me. "Tell me what's wrong with this client brief." I scanned the document. New partner, old money, half-hidden amendments in the contract footer. "He's hiding indemnity clauses," I said. "Planning to dump liability onto our firm if his offshore investments tank." Thorne nodded once. "And the NDA?" I smirked. "Worded so we can't talk about the clause we're not supposed to see." "Clever." He finally leaned back. "Very." We sat in silence for a beat. Then, "Walk with me." The elevator was nearly empty by the time we stepped in. Just us, and the buzz of fluorescent light. I stood near the back, hands folded. He pressed the button for the parking level. We didn't speak. The air between us wasn't tense exactly. It was charged, like something unsaid stretched between us, delicate but taut. I could feel him watching me, not in a leering way, just observing, calculating. I turned my head slightly. "You don't need me for this meeting," I said softly. "No," he agreed. "Then why?" "Because you listen when no one's speaking," he said. "You see what's underneath. That's not on my job description, it is now." The elevator stopped. He didn't move for a second, neither did I. Then he turned to me just before the doors opened. "You're not invisible, Miss Taylor," he said. "You're just inconvenient to people who like the illusion of control." The doors slid apart. He walked out first, and for the first time all day I let myself smile, just a little. Because I wasn't sure what game he was playing, but I had a feeling he didn't bring ghosts to meetings unless they could haunt someone useful. The underground garage always echoed more than it should have. Even at night, even nearly empty, there was something off about the acoustics, like the walls held on to sounds too long, and the shadows moved just a fraction slower than they should when the lights flickered overhead. I wasn't planning to see him there. I'd worked late, again, no surprise. and I was heading to my car, coat over one arm, coffee thermos in hand, when I heard it. Voices, deep, sharp, not angry, not raised, but wrong, like someone whispering underwater, or metal dragging over silk. I stopped mid-step. One voice was Thorne's. That I knew instantly. The cadence, the control, the way he never used contractions unless it was calculated. But the other, I couldn't place. It was too thick, too fluid. It didn't sound like a human voice at all. It sounded like... I pressed myself behind a column and held my breath. The words didn't make sense. They weren't in English, or Latin, or anything I'd ever heard in 4 years of mandatory language electives, except one word, one syllable, clear, deliberate. Nina? My heart stuttered. They were talking about me. The other voice responded, a hiss, low and displeased. I didn't catch the words, but the tone chilled me. Then Thorne spoke again, calm, cold. She's seen, but she won't run. And the other replied with something that made the air hum. I backed away slowly, pulse hammering, shoes silent against the concrete. I didn't want to hear more. I didn't want to understand more. But I did. And I was no longer curious. I was certain. He wasn't human. And now I knew he knew I knew. By the time I got home, my hands were still shaking. Not from fear, not exactly, but from the jolt of something ancient in my chest. Like a truth I hadn't wanted was finally stretching its limbs inside me. My apartment was quiet, familiar, safe. The walls were a soft gray blue, the couch a second-hand treasure wrapped in velvet. My books were stacked in leaning towers across the coffee table. Plants drooped from high shelves, and the smell of lavender drifted faintly from the reed diffuser I never remembered refilling. And Coffee, my anxious little mutt with 2 long legs and a tail like a broom, was already waiting at the door, wagging half-heartedly and tilting his head. "Hey, buddy," I murmured, rubbing behind his ears. "Sorry I'm late, again." He sniffed at my coat, then backed away with a whine. That was new. I dropped my things and walked to the bathroom, flicking on the light. Then I froze. The mirror had a hairline crack, right down the center, as if something had pressed from the inside. I hadn't dropped anything. I hadn't slammed the door. Nothing had fallen. The glass just split. I stepped closer, heart thudding louder now. My reflection stared back, slightly fractured. My own eyes didn't look quite right in the break. One seemed darker than the other. Behind me, Coffee barked. I turned around fast. He was by the window, ears pinned, staring into nothing. Then suddenly he growled. "Hey," I said gently, kneeling. "What is it?" He didn't look at me. He just kept growling. Not at the door, not at the window, at me. My spine went cold. "Coffee, it's me." He whimpered once, then darted behind the couch. I stood, slowly. I went back to the mirror, touched the crack. It was warm, too warm. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just stared. And I remembered. The way Thorne moved without sound. The way people seemed to agree with him without knowing why. The way my name had been spoken like a spell in a tongue that wasn't made for human mouths. None of this was new. I'd just refused to see it, until now. I didn't know what he was. Not exactly. But the words circled in my mind, clear and sharp and inevitable. Demon. Thorne Drake was a demon. And he'd chosen me for something. I didn't know what. But I wasn't running. I crossed the room and closed the blinds, locking the window. Then I picked up Coffee, held him tight even though he still trembled, and sat on the couch in the quiet hum of the city beyond the glass. "You've seen it now," I told myself. "So what are you going to do?" And the answer came, clear as his voice in the garage. "I'm not going to run. I'm going to find out why." His office was dim when I stepped inside. Not dark exactly, just warm, too warm. The lights were low, the blinds drawn tight, and the only illumination came from a brass desk lamp that spilled soft gold over the leather blotter and stacks of papers that, I suspected, weren't made for human eyes. Thorne didn't look up right away. He sat in his chair, sleeves rolled to the forearm, black tie loosened just enough to suggest exhaustion, but nothing in his posture allowed for weakness. He exuded the same energy as always, composed, unreadable, sharp like a knife still sheathed. "You're late," he said without heat. "I was early," I replied. "I stood outside for 5 minutes." He tilted his head slightly. "Why? To see if you'd blink." That got his attention. His eyes flicked to mine just for a moment, but it was enough. They were bottomless, endless, still. He didn't blink. I smiled, just a little. "You really don't, do you?" "No," he said simply. Silence bloomed, not awkward but expectant. Then he slid a file across the desk toward me. "Client brief. Bernard & Co. Take a look." I stepped closer, flipping open the folder. Paper, not digital. Curious. My fingertips brushed the parchment, thicker than standard stock, and the scent that rose off it was something ancient. Leather, ink, and something else. Something metallic and sweet. I scanned the first page, read faster than I should have. "They're stalling," I said after a moment. "Not because they're uncertain, but because they want you to believe they are. It's leverage. Psychological. Give you time to second-guess your position. They plan to feign concession, then pivot once your side relaxes. It's a pattern. There's a delay clause buried on page 5, designed to make you seem reactionary when they push back." Thorne's lips twitched. "And what would you do?" "Call the bluff early," I said. "Not in words. In posture. Don't offer. Don't ask. Just declare." I felt the weight of his gaze as I spoke. More than focus, less than scrutiny. Like he was trying to see why I could see. I closed the folder and slid it back toward him. As I did, our hands touched. Only briefly. My fingers grazed his. Just skin. Warmth. Pressure. Completely. No flinch. No blink. Just stillness. I looked up. He was staring at our hands like something had bitten him, but not in pain. In recognition. His voice, when it came, was soft. "You touched me. You handed me a file," I said evenly, though my pulse had leapt. "Occupational hazard." He didn't pull away. Not right away. Then slowly he leaned back, as if detaching from gravity itself. "You touched me," he repeated, quieter. "That's dangerous." I didn't ask why. I didn't step back. Instead, I straightened. "I'm not in the habit of begging for forgiveness. Like a man." "You don't fear me," he said. Not a question. "No," I said. "I think you want me to. But I don't." "Why?" I considered lying. It would have been easy. But something about this moment, this rare crack in the mask, demanded honesty. "Because I've seen what fear does to people," I said softly. "It makes them small, makes them predictable. And you don't want someone predictable, do you?" He smiled, just barely. "No." His voice dropped an octave. "I want someone dangerous." A beat passed, then another. He stood, walking slowly around the desk until he stood in front of me. Not close enough to touch, but close enough to feel. The heat of him, the way the air bent around him. Like he wasn't fully tethered to this world. And I still didn't step back. "You've seen more than most," he murmured. "And you're still here." "I don't run," I said. His gaze dipped to my lips for a fraction of a second. A micro-expression, gone almost instantly. He stepped back, just one step. But it felt like miles. "You should go, Miss Taylor. Is that a warning or a dismissal?" "It's a test," he said. "Let's see if you pass." I didn't turn immediately. I took my time collecting my things, straightened my jacket, met his eyes one last time, eyes that still didn't blink. And I said, "You keep testing me, Mr. Drake. One day you won't like how I answer." Then I left. But not before I saw the corner of his mouth twitch again. Almost. Fond. Almost. The rain in Hong Kong didn't fall. It shimmered. Like threads of light unraveling from the sky, catching in the neon haze that turned the city into a living thing. Pulsing, breathing, watching. We stepped out of the black car and into the glow. My heels clicked sharply on the wet stone as I followed Thorne through the mirrored entrance of the Jade Crown Hotel. It was the kind of place. That didn't need to advertise its power. It simply was. Polished marble, carved jade, gold so old it looked like it remembered empires. "Your room is on the 32nd floor, he said as we passed the reception. "Mine is above." "Of course it is," I murmured. He didn't smile, but the corner of his mouth twitched. We didn't speak in the elevator. The silence was familiar now, not empty, just full of things neither of us had said yet. When we arrived at my floor, he handed me a slim card key and said, "You have 2 hours. Wear something that makes people underestimate you." Should I be insulted or intrigued? Both, he said. It keeps things interesting. 2 hours later, I stepped out of my room in a tailored black dress and low heels. Professional, sleek, and just disarming enough. My hair was pinned, my face neutral. Thorne met me by the elevators. He didn't comment on how I looked. He didn't need to. His eyes lingered for half a second too long. "Ready?" he asked. I nodded. We rode down in silence, but I could feel the tension between us like static. The car was already waiting outside. His driver, a man with no name and no expression, nodded once as we entered and pulled into the river of neon and glass. The meeting was held in a private suite above a rooftop restaurant. Low light, murals on the walls, wine no one drank. The air smelled faintly of incense and strategy. 3 men were waiting. Old money, slick smiles. I'd seen their type before, powerful in boardrooms, pathetic in courtrooms. They sized me up like I was an accessory. Mistake number 1. Thorne let them talk first. Always. They danced around numbers, offered half promises, made jabs they thought were subtle. Then he leaned forward, just slightly, and spoke. I don't remember all the words. What I remember is the sound. The shift in the room, like the air itself bowed to him. His voice didn't rise, it dropped. Deep, slow, and somehow louder than it should have been. One man blinked rapidly, another adjusted his collar. The third started to sweat. I didn't flinch. I watched, because now I saw it. The way his shadow curved against the light, the way his pupils shimmered when he said binding, the way he didn't persuade, he unmade resistance. And when he was done, the men nodded, signed, smiled even. They never realized what they gave up, but I did. It was after midnight when we returned to the hotel. The suite was quiet, the city buzzing far below like a dream too loud to wake from. He didn't go to his room. He walked to the balcony instead. I followed, slowly. The rain had stopped. The world was slick with light, colors reflected in puddles like spilled paint. "You were quiet," he said, not turning. "I was watching, and you don't win deals, you undo decisions. People leave thinking they made the choice." He glanced at me over his shoulder. "And you?" "I didn't decide anything," I said, "but I know what I saw." He faced me fully now. The light from the city caught the edges of his face, too sharp, too still. "You've been circling it," he said. "Ask the question." I swallowed. "What are you?" His gaze didn't waver. "Not from your world, that's not an answer. It's the only one I can give you without breaking something inside you." I stepped forward. "Try me." A pause. Then, "Don't scream." And the world changed. It wasn't sudden. It was like the veil between this and something older lifted. His skin shimmered, then darkened like ink spilled in water. Not pitch black, but something other, with veins of gold glowing beneath the surface. Horns curled back from his temples, obsidian edged with molten light. His eyes weren't eyes anymore. They were fire-contained, burning low but endless. His hands were still hands, but the tips of his fingers gleamed like they'd been dipped in starlight and blade. He wasn't grotesque, he was terrible, and beautiful, and real, and I didn't run. I looked at him, really looked. "Okay," I whispered, "now it makes sense." He blinked, the first time I'd ever seen him do it. "You're not afraid." "I am," I said. "But it's not the dangerous kind." "What kind is it?" "The kind that stays." He looked at me for a long moment. Then slowly the light beneath his skin dimmed. The horns faded. The gold turned back to flesh. The man returned, but the truth of him lingered. "You should leave," he said quietly. "Go back to your world, before it swallows you." I stepped closer. Too late. He stared at me like I was breaking some rule I didn't know existed, and maybe I was. But I wasn't going anywhere. Not yet. By the time I reached the conference room, Leslie was already mid-presentation. I stood just inside the door, quiet, unnoticed, invisible. Classic. She wore a navy pencil dress and a silk scarf that looked like it cost more than my rent. Her heels clicked like applause with every step she took in front of the projection screen. And there it was. My work. Every graph, every case study, every slide I had stayed up nights perfecting. She hadn't even changed the colors. Only the name on the title page. Leslie Marlowe. No one in the room questioned it. The board members nodded, murmured praise. One of the VPs actually clapped. Thorne sat at the head of the table, perfectly still, no expression on his face. His fingers steepled in front of him like they were holding something sharp and invisible. He didn't look at me. Not once. When it was over, the room applauded lightly, and Leslie smiled like a queen on a bloody chessboard. I didn't say a word. I just turned and walked out. Back at my desk, I opened my inbox to a message from someone I hadn't expected. Dana. Subject line, "Hey, I wanted to tell you first." I clicked. "Hey Nina, I just wanted to be honest. I was approached by PR. They needed a background on you for the pitch meeting and offered me a freelance consulting fee. I figured it was harmless, just helping them shape your profile. Nothing personal. Hope you understand." I read it twice, then again, and finally just closed the window. I should have felt anger, rage, something. But instead there was just quiet, the kind that settled in bones, the kind that said, "You've outgrown this version of yourself." That night the office was quiet again, familiar. Thorne's door was open. That was new. He stood near the window, city lights washing him in silver and shadow. His jacket was off, his sleeves rolled, and for once he looked, not tired, but still, like even he needed to pause sometimes. "You saw the presentation," I said, stepping inside. "Yes, and..." "It was clean," he said. "Convincing. It was mine, I know, and you said nothing." He turned to face me. "What would you have me say?" I took a breath. "Anything." "She was strategic," he said. "You were silent. The board listens to confidence, not truth. And you?" He looked at me for a long moment. "I listened to fire." I folded my arms. "Then maybe you've been watching the wrong person." "No," he said softly. "I've been waiting for the right one to burn." I stared at him, not understanding, not completely. "You want me to fight?" "I want you to decide," he said. "You've been convenient, efficient, quiet. That ends now." "Why?" He stepped closer. "Because I won't protect what won't protect itself." I didn't answer right away, because the words hit somewhere I hadn't opened yet. I thought of Leslie's smirk, Dana's emoji apology, the polite applause for a lie dressed in heels, and I realized I was done being background, done letting others speak for me, done hoping merit would be louder than manipulation. "You want fire?" I said finally. "You've got it." He gave the slightest nod. "Then be ready," I added. "Because I don't burn gently." His mouth curved, almost a smile. "Good." I turned to leave, but before I crossed the threshold, he spoke again. "You'll need allies. Not everyone wants to see you rise." I glanced back over my shoulder. Then they should have been smarter when I was quiet. I left his office with my head high, my hands steady, and the first true flicker of something dangerous in my chest. Not vengeance, not pride, power. And this time, I wasn't afraid of it. The conference room was nothing like ours. It was quiet, but not with silence, with money. The kind that soaked into the carpet and gleamed off imported glass walls. The kind that didn't need to speak loudly because it already owned everything worth listening to. Thorne and I sat at one end of the polished table. Across from us sat Conrad Vale, a man known for building empires out of ash and lawsuits. His suit probably cost more than my annual salary. His smile was surgical. Beside him, his assistant passed over a leather-bound folder. No logos, no signatures. Just power stitched and bound. "I'll make this simple," Vale said. "We want the merger, we want your discretion, and we want a cleaner line of communication." Thorne didn't move. "Define cleaner." Vale's smile widened. "No secretaries." The room chilled by 2 degrees. He didn't look at me. He didn't have to. His meaning was clear. "She's not just a secretary," Thorne said, his voice even. "Perception matters more than accuracy," Vale replied. If you want the world to take this seriously, you need distance from anything unexplained. She's a shadow, useful, yes, but now she's drawing light and attention. I waited for Thorne to speak, to refute it, to shut it down with the weight of his silence. But he didn't. He said nothing. The meeting ended 15 minutes later, with polite nods and faux pleasantries. Back in the elevator, I stood perfectly still. So did he. But not a word passed between us. Later that night, I sat on the floor of my apartment, barefoot, legs crossed, coffee asleep beside me. An email blinked on my laptop. Subject, opportunity, senior analyst role. It was from Lyon and Gray, one of the most respected firms in the country. I hadn't applied. I hadn't even reached out. But the message was clear. Someone had recommended me. The salary was double, the benefits absurd, no demons, no secrets. Just clean, sharp professionalism in a bright glass tower. Safe, predictable. Everything I had convinced myself I wanted. I closed the laptop, got up, poured wine, sat again, and stared at the city lights until they blurred into watercolors. When my phone buzzed, it was close to midnight. Thorne. The message read, "If you want out, now is the time. No one will fault you for leaving, not even me." I stared at it for a long time, then typed back, "Me, do you want me to leave?" A pause. Thorne, want? No. Thorne, but this world is built to erase people like you. Thorne, and I can't protect you from all of it. I didn't answer, not right away, because he wasn't lying, and that was the problem. At 1:17 a.m., I stood in front of the window and asked myself the question I'd been circling for weeks. What do I want? Not what was safe, not what was smart, but what was mine. And the answer, as terrifying as it was, wasn't clean, it wasn't easy. It had a name, and eyes that never blinked, and hands that could bend reality. I didn't want protection. I wanted to be seen. Fully. Even in the dark. Even by a demon. Especially by him. And I wanted to know what I could become when I stopped running from my own damn shadow. I picked up my phone, typed, "Me, I'm not going anywhere," and then, "Me, but next time if someone tries to erase me, I erase them first." The reply came instantly. "Thorne, good. Thorne, then we begin." I didn't expect him to come to my office. No one ever did. It was a corner behind a column, more nook than workspace, with a flickering overhead light and a cracked chair that squeaked every time I shifted. Which, to be fair, hadn't happened often lately. But that morning, I was packing up. Not because I was leaving the company, because I wasn't going to sit in a corner anymore. I pulled down the photos from the wall, not family, just notes and clipped quotes and the occasional sarcastic meme no one else noticed. I placed my pens neatly in a box, took the plants, left the awards I hadn't actually received under my own name. When I heard footsteps, I didn't look up. Everyone walked past this space. That was the whole point. But the steps stopped, right in front of me, and the air shifted. I raised my eyes. Thorne Drake stood in my doorway, for the first time. He didn't speak, just looked around the space like he was seeing it, really seeing it, for the first time. The too small desk, the single drawer that always stuck, the lack of a nameplate. "You've never been here," I said quietly. "No," he agreed. "Because it's beneath you?" His gaze flicked to mine. "Because it was never worthy of you." "You're leaving?" he asked. "No, I'm moving. To where?" I smiled. "Somewhere with a door." He stepped further in, close enough that I had to look up to meet his eyes. "I got your message," he said. "Loud and clear. Good. I have something to offer you." I raised a brow. "Another promotion no one acknowledges? A raise no one knows I got? A new corner to be efficient in?" He shook his head. "A contract." I stilled. He reached into his coat and pulled out a single sheet of dark parchment. No lines, no ink, just texture like whispers burned into velvet. "This isn't a metaphor," he said. "I figured." He placed it gently on the desk. "It's not a job, it's a bond. You name the terms, you write them, you choose the power you take, and the power you give." I stared down at it. No signature yet, not even his. "I could burn this," he said. "Say the word, and it's gone. Everything ends. No consequences." He meant it. I could walk away. I could start over. I could take that safe job with clean desks and no horns hiding behind polished smiles. But I didn't want clean anymore. I wanted true. I looked up. You don't get to write the rules anymore, I said. His jaw tensed. Not in resistance, in restraint. Then what do I get? A new contract, I said. Written together. No illusions, no shadows, equal. And if I don't like what you ask, then you don't sign. A long silence stretched between us. Heavy, final, sacred. Then finally he nodded. I accept those terms. And in a blink, he was gone. No sound, no trace, just the contract left on the desk. And the space he'd filled still holding the weight of him. I reached out and ran my fingers over the surface. It pulsed beneath my touch. Not evil, not good, just real. I took a breath, picked up my pen, and began to write. Not a resignation, not a request, but a declaration. That I was no longer just a secretary. I was a partner. In power, in purpose, in everything that came next. 1 year later, the lights were all on me. I stood beneath the golden chandeliers of the Marlowe Grand Hotel, the soft weight of a silk blazer on my shoulders, heels firm on the marble stage. Cameras flashed. People applauded. Behind me, a sleek black screen displayed the new logo, Drake and Taylor. The room smelled like champagne and success, the kind of success that no one could call accidental. Please welcome our new partner and co-owner, the host said. The strategist behind half our expansion deals this year, Nina Taylor. They clapped louder this time, but I didn't shrink from it. I stood straighter, smiled, thanked them with a nod, and when I spoke I did it clearly, calmly, with the kind of voice people leaned in to hear, not loud, just certain. Afterward, as people mingled and the cameras turned away, I stepped down into the crowd. I shook hands, accepted congratulations, ignored the 2 curious questions. No one mentioned how I got here, no one dared, because now they knew me, not the assistant, not the ghost, me. And then I saw him. In the far corner of the room near the exit, not hiding, just watching. Thorne. Perfect black suit, shirt open at the collar, a glass of untouched wine in one hand, and on the other, a ring. Simple, silver, dark-stoned. Mine matched it. We never made an announcement. No one asked. That was the thing about fear. It kept people respectful. Or quiet. I moved toward him slowly, parting the crowd like water. He didn't speak until I reached him. You looked comfortable up there, he said. You didn't blink. I learned from the best. He smiled just slightly. They're scared of you now. Good. A pause. You still want this? He asked. Not like a man unsure, like a creature who had to ask because freedom mattered. I looked around, at the name on the screen, at the colleagues who now listened when I spoke, at the life I had built, not borrowed. Then back at him. Yes, I said. And me? I reached for his hand, interlaced our fingers. You're not the power behind the throne anymore, I said softly. You're the one who stands beside it. He brought my hand to his lips, warm and deliberate. You made me something I didn't know I could be. And what's that? Not alone. My chest tightened, not from pain but from knowing. Deep, soul-level knowing. He could have destroyed the world. He chose me instead. People say demons don't love. They're wrong. They just don't love easily. Or softly. They love like contracts, signed in silence, honored in action, unbreakable when chosen freely. And I had chosen. As we turned toward the elevator, leaving the applause behind us, I caught one last glimpse of the logo on the wall. Drake and Taylor. Equal weight, equal presence. He was the demon the world feared. But I was the only one who called him by name, and he answered only to me.